Welcome to the Public Information Center for Mansfield Water Supply and Storage Schedule B Municipal Class Environmental Assessment. Please provide any additional comments to Jeff Pasner or Chris Wolnick before January 8th, 2025. We are currently at Phase 2, Alternative Solutions, of the Municipal Class EA process for a Schedule B project. This includes consultation with agencies, stakeholders, and the public. Presented on this slide is the overall consultation timeline for the Municipal Class EA process. We are currently at the Public Information Center component. The following timeline may vary depending on the comments that are received by stakeholders, agencies, and the public. The project area includes the existing development within the town of Mansfield and 3 future development areas located to the north, west, and south of the existing town. There is also an allowance for 5 infill lots to be developed within the existing community. The town of Mansfield is serviced by a communal drinking water system. 3 drilled wells provide water to a centralized pump house and standpipe location located on Airport Road across the street from St. Andrew's Church. Treatment of the water is provided with sodium hypochlorite, most commonly known as chlorine, with contact time in the standpipe provided for disinfection. Pumping systems are located in the pump house, including an emergency pump which provides fire flows to the distribution system. Water mains are located throughout the community, which provide potable water and include hydrants for fire protection. A map of the existing drinking water system is presented on this slide. The 3 drilled wells are located across the community. PW1 is located to the north on County Road 18. PW2A is located to the south on Airport Road at the existing pump house and standpipe area. PW3A is located to the northeast along Somerville Crescent. Raw water piping is shown in red, which serves to bring water from each of the drilled wells to the centralized pump house and standpipe area for treatment and storage. Potable water is delivered to users as shown in blue with distribution water main across the community. Recently, a test well was drilled at Thompson Trail Park, which is located to the south of the community. Additional information on this test well will be provided on later slides. A problem or opportunity statement defines the purpose of the environmental assessment. It clearly identifies the issue that needs to be addressed or an opportunity that can be pursued. A clear problem or opportunity statement provides a basis for explaining the need for the project to stakeholders, agencies, and the public, which fosters better understanding and engagement. The Township of Mulmer is undertaking the Schedule B Municipal Class Environmental Assessment to address the problem of how the township can provide water supply and fire protection to meet the future demands of growth in the village of Mansfield. The Municipal Class EA will identify and evaluate as necessary the related system components, including well supply, treatment, storage, and pumping systems, as well as the water distribution system. The existing water system services an estimated population of 385 people. Historical flow meter data was analyzed to calculate the current per capita average day flow. This was determined to be 294 liters per capita per day. The existing maximum day demand is 3.3 liters per second, and the existing peak hour demand is 5.9 liters per second. The existing water system provides fire flow at 38 liters per second for 2 hours. Storage is currently 530 cubic meters. With future development, the population is expected to increase to approximately 1,153 people. Using the historical calculated per capita flow, future water demands can be estimated. The projected maximum day demand for future development is 10.1 liters per second. Currently, with all 3 wells operating, they can meet this requirement at 11 liters per second. However, as per Ministry of Environment, Conservation and Parks guidelines, the raw water supply for drinking water systems shall be able to meet the maximum day demand with the largest well out of service. This is commonly referred to as firm capacity. The current firm capacity of the existing drinking water system is 6.8 liters per second, which is less than the projected maximum day demand. The projected peak hour demand is 15.2 liters per second. Currently, with 2 of 3 high-lift pumps running simultaneously, the existing water system can provide 11.4 liters per second, which does not meet this requirement. The future fire flow requirement is 83 liters per second for 2 hours. The future storage requirement is 1,012 cubic meters. As identified in the previous slide, an increase to the raw water supply capacity is required to meet future water system demands with the largest well out of service. A test well, TW1-24, was constructed in April 2024 and located at the south side of Thompson Trail Park. Pumping test results indicate ability to improve water supply capacity to meet future raw water supply requirements. A municipal well will need to be constructed near the test well. Wellhead protection areas are outlined in the image on this slide. The existing wellhead protection areas are already established and outlined in the Source Water Protection Plan. A final wellhead protection area for the new well will be established based on the final municipal well location, the permitted pumping rate, and modeling. Different wellhead protection areas are shown on this image. Wellhead protection area A is shown as 100 meters boundary around TW1-24. Based on the existing source water protection plan, wellhead protection area B is located within the wellhead protection area A boundary. No source water protection plan policies apply to the wellhead protection area D due to its low vulnerability. Wellhead protection areas have various land use restrictions as outlined in the Source Water Protection Plan. Zone A is a 100-meter boundary around the well. This has the highest level of policy and land use restriction due to its close proximity to the water source. These restrictions are in place to protect and maintain the source of water for the community. Alternative solutions were identified and evaluated to address the problem statement of this EA. These alternatives include Alternative 1, do nothing, and Alternative 2, site options for treatment and storage upgrades. 5 different locations were considered under Alternative 2. These include the existing Mansfield Pump House and Standpipe site, Thompson Trail Park, West Development Land, South Development Land, and PW3A. Alternative 1, do nothing, does not address the problem statement. The advantages of this alternative include no impact to existing conditions related to the natural environment, no nuisances related to construction, no expenses associated with new infrastructure, and no new land is required. However, this alternative does not conform to the township's plan for designated growth in the area of Mansfield. The existing water system does not have capacity to meet future development demands. As such, this alternative was not selected as the preliminary preferred alternative. Under Alternative 2, site options, the existing pump house and standpipe site was considered and evaluated. The raw water piping from the 3 existing wells is already routed to this location. If the required upgrades can fit within the space available, no land purchase or acquisition would be required. However, it was determined that there is insufficient space for the required upgrades within the existing site boundary. A new standpipe and foundation would be required. As such, there is no cost savings to be realized with the existing standpipe. A below-grade reservoir would be required to provide contact time for disinfection due to space constraints and the presence of iron in the raw water supply. This results in increased capital and operations and maintenance costs. Well PW2A is located at this location. Dufferin County has confirmed that the facility will require a Class II greywater system, which requires a 10-meter setback from any municipal well as per the Ontario Building Code. An expansion to the pump house building would be required. The cost of construction of the required building addition, plus the construction costs and engineering costs for retrofitting the existing portion of the building, will be on par with simply constructing a brand new building. As such, there are also no cost savings to be realized with the existing pump house. The Mansfield pump house and standpipe is the only location at which potable water is pumped into the distribution system. As such, maintaining flow and pressure to the distribution system during construction provides increased costs for temporary storage and pumping systems with this site alternative. Finally, construction in close proximity to well PW2A provides additional risk of using the existing site if the integrity of the well casing is damaged due to excavation or other construction works. Based on this analysis, the existing pump house and standpipe site does not address the problem statement due to insufficient space for the required infrastructure upgrades. Therefore, this alternative was not selected and carried forward for further evaluation. The four remaining site options under Alternative 2 are Thompson Trail Park, West Development Land, South Development Land, and PW3A. Site 1, Thompson Trail Park, is close to the new test well location and in a centralized part of Mansfield. An overview of the required raw water piping infrastructure is shown from the existing wells and new test well location on this slide. An extension of the raw water piping from PW1 will be required along Jeffrey Drive, while much of the existing raw water piping from PW3A could be utilized to reduce costs associated with bringing both PW2A and PW3A to the new site. Each site option is evaluated under three categories, including natural environment, socioeconomic/cultural environment, and technical factors. The proposed conceptual layout of the required water system upgrades indicates that there is sufficient space at this location for the required infrastructure. This includes a greywater system, standby generator, pump house building, standpipe, and chlorine contact piping for disinfection. The site is located near the new test well, which reduces costs associated with raw water piping and electrical costs for the well pump with this alternative. Preliminary hydraulic modeling indicates no required upgrades to the existing distribution system for future development. This is slightly the lowest capital cost alternative, estimated at approximately $9.12 million. This site location will have impacts to nearby residents during construction on soils, air, and noise due to close proximity to several residences in the park. Minor clearing of vegetation may also be required. There is loss of natural parkland with this alternative and would change the aesthetic look of the area. The geometry of the site is not optimal for planning and design of infrastructure. There is minimal space to accommodate design changes or additional infrastructure that could be identified during detailed design. A large three-phase power extension is also required along Thompson Trail. Due to the loss of parkland, impacts to local residences, and suboptimal geometry of the site, this was identified as the less preferred site option. Site option 2, West Development Land, is the closest site option to the existing pump house and standpipe area. It is situated to the north of Side Road 9. An overview of the required raw water piping infrastructure is shown from the existing wells and new test well location. A piping easement would be required to bring the raw water piping and electrical conduit from the existing and new well to the proposed site. Much of the existing raw water piping from PW1, PW2A, and PW3A could be utilized with this site option. New raw water piping would be required from the new well near TW1-24. The proposed conceptual layout of the required water system upgrades indicates that there is sufficient space at this location for the required water system infrastructure. The geometry of this site is optimal for the design and layout of the required infrastructure. The site is located near the raw water piping from the existing wells, which reduces capital costs associated with connections to a new site. The preliminary hydraulic modeling results indicates that there are no required upgrades to the existing distribution system for future development due to its centralized location. This site is the more cost-effective for three-phase power compared to site options 1 and 3 due to the close proximity on Airport Road. This site would require land purchase/acquisition considerations among future benefiting developers. This site location will have minimal impacts to residents during construction on soils, air, and noise due to its more remote location. Clearing of tree farm vegetation would be required. This is the second lowest capital cost alternative, estimated at approximately $9.2 million. This alternative meets the technical requirements of the problem statement and minimizes socio-economic, cultural, and environmental impacts due to its more remote location. It is currently the most preferred site option. Site option 3, South Development Land, is located to the south of Thompson Trail Park, near the new test well. An overview of the required raw water piping infrastructure is shown from the existing wells and new test well location. An extension of the raw water piping from PW1 would be required along Jeffrey Drive, while much of the existing raw water piping from PW3A could be utilized to reduce costs associated with bringing both PW2A and PW3A water to the new site. The proposed conceptual layout of the required water system upgrades indicates that there is sufficient space at this location for the required infrastructure. The site is ideally located near the new test well, which reduces costs associated with raw water piping and electrical costs associated with the well pump. The preliminary hydraulic modeling results indicates there are no required upgrades to the existing distribution system for future development due to the centralized location. This site location will have impacts to some nearby residents during construction on soils, air, and noise due to close proximity to several residences and the park. Minor clearing of vegetation may be required as well. The geometry of the site is optimal for planning and design of infrastructure. A large three-phase power extension is required along Thompson Trail. Due to the reduced impacts to local residences at this site compared to Site 1, Thompson Trail Park, the more optimal layout of the site, and ability to meet the technical requirements of the problem statement, this site was identified as the more preferred site option. Site option 4, PW3A, is the furthest site option from the existing pump house and standpipe area. It is situated at the northeast end of Mansfield along Somerville Crescent. An overview of the required raw water piping infrastructure is shown from the existing wells and new test well location. Much of the existing raw water piping from PW3A could be utilized with this site option to bring PW2A to the new site. PW1 would require a new raw water piping extension along County Road 17, and the new well would require raw water piping along Thompson Trail to Somerville Crescent. The proposed conceptual layout of the required water system upgrades indicates that there is sufficient space at this location for the required infrastructure. The site is ideally located near PW3A, which reduces costs associated with raw water piping and electrical costs associated with the well pump. Preliminary modeling results indicate a distribution connection is required along County Road 17 to meet fire flow requirements. This site would also require the relocation of a communications tower. This site location will have impacts to some nearby residents during construction on soils, air, and noise due to close proximity to several residences. Minor clearing of vegetation may also be required. The geometry of this site is not optimal for planning and design of infrastructure. A 3-phase power extension would also be required from County Road 17. Overall, this site has the highest capital cost estimate of $9.6 million. Due to the highest capital cost associated with this site option, combined with impacts to nearby residences, the suboptimal layout of the site, this site was identified as the least preferred site option. The preliminary preferred alternative is alternative number 2, site option 2, West Development Land. The centralized location of this site is close to the existing raw water piping and connection from the existing wells. There is no loss of existing parkland areas to residents, and the geometry of the site is optimal to support the layout of the required infrastructure to meet future development and accommodate design changes that could be identified during the detailed design. The township can work with the developer to finalize the layout to optimize the use of this area. The site is located in an area where construction impacts to residents are minimal. The site is easily accessible for operation of water system and delivery of operating supplies without requiring travel through residential areas. The site is more accessible and cost-effective for required 3-phase power extensions compared to site options 1 and 3 due to its proximity to Airport Road. Based on preliminary modeling of future development areas, the required fire flow is achievable from this location. Thank you for your time and interest in this public information center for the town of Mansfield. Please provide comments by completing the comment sheet or sending comments to Jeff Pasner or Chris Wolnick before January 8, 2025. We will review comments received and conduct additional work if necessary. We will reevaluate alternatives in light of the comments received. We will select a preferred alternative and finalize the project file report. A notice of completion will be issued. There will be a 30-day public agency review of project file report once the notice of completion is issued. If no Section 16.6 order is received, we will proceed to detailed design and construction. Financial arrangements for payment of the expanded water system will need to be made prior to commencing the design and construction stage. Presentation materials will be available online at the following link. Thank you for attending.